Salute BookTube. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. Today is Tuesday, and that means Tag Tuesday, and I've been tagged again by Angelina at her channel Books Do Things to Me. I'll link her channel and her version of this tag, which I'm about to do. You should check out her version as well. The tag is called the 8 Memories Book Tag. And I'll read the description just to explain it. It's not a normal tag in that there are prompts. It's just one prompt in which you are asked to list 8 books that bring back memories to your life. I'll read the description. It'll probably be better than what how I can explain it. It says, what are 8 books that you see on your shelf or that you remember reading where that sight evokes powerful memories regarding moments in your life or key experiences? Similar to when you hear a song and it transports you in memory to a key moment or period in your life, what 8 books do the same for you and why? It's carte blanche on how much information someone wishes to impart or not. It's an opportunity to give subscribers, like yourselves, a little more detail on how lives connect to books via experience. Also, it gives listeners to our book memories more information about us for when we are no longer here to tell them. That last part about more information about us for when we are no longer here to tell them was interesting. I had seen a video by Mark Richardson, a BookTube channel. If I remember, I'll try to find the video and link it below as well. It's an older video, but he was mentioning that a lot of these videos that we make on BookTube, if they stay on the internet, on the YouTube platform or wherever it will be archived many decades in the future, this will be a record. It'll stay in the public record, and so maybe our children, our grandchildren, even our great-grandchildren will be watching our videos. So if my future great-grandchildren are watching this video, hi, it's me here in 2025. It's really me. So nice to meet you guys. I hope you enjoy this video. So that was interesting. It's also interesting for me. The end of October, I turned 40. So it's a landmark birthday for me. I don't usually celebrate birthdays, but 40 is just it's weird. It's like a midpoint, like this is like a midlife crisis. So or I'm looking forward to a midlife crisis. Hopefully, if I have another 40 years ahead of me, if I'm lucky. But I thought this tag came at a good time because of my 40th birthday. I go back memories of of the last 40 years through books and maybe give you a better idea about myself and my life, if any of you are interested. So with that, I'll get to the books. Again, there's no prompts. You just get into the book. So I thought I'd start from the beginning and do this in chronological order. The first books I wanted to show are related to my childhood, and for those of you who are regulars on my channel, you know my book reading history. I began as a child in elementary school as a pretty avid reader. I read a lot of books. I still have a lot of my children's books here in my library. I've saved many of them. But once I got into junior high and high school, I had the great cutoff. I stopped reading in my high school years, and then I got back into it at university. So I just wanted to start with one of the books, examples, some of the books from my childhood before I stopped in my high school years. These books, they're actually 2, but I'm going to count them as one. It's part of the same set. These are the Hardy Boys. There's actually 2 of them. The first one is called The Mystery of the Whale Tattoo, and the author is Franklin W. Dixon. This one is number 47 in the series. I have 2 random ones, number 47 and number 48. But I don't know if Franklin W. Dixon wrote all of them, but I have 47. Again, Mystery of the Whale Tattoo. And then number 48, as mentioned, is The Arctic Portal Mystery, also by Franklin W. Dixon. Sorry for the glare, but nice covers, and these are nice hardbacks, and these are from my childhood. It reminds me of my childhood. These Hardy Boy books, very engrossing. I remember it being. I can still remember. I haven't read it since my childhood, but it was. I do remember that it was a page turner, and I really enjoyed them. And as you can see, the Hardy Boys. It's a very my childhood reading was very what I think the British call laddish, like very boyish. A lot of boyish books. Hardy Boys was very. I don't know what the word is. Very male centric. Although I think I would imagine. I mean, the main characters are male. I don't remember if there's even any female characters that recur in the series. I don't remember, but just as an example, this doesn't count in the 8 books. I just pulled these out. I've showed these before. Again, example of my laddish, boyish kind of early boyhood reading. This Roald Dahl, Danny, Champion of the World, book about a boy and his father. And also this really battered copy that I still have from my childhood, Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Flies, by William Golding. Again, two very boyish sort of books. The same with the Hardy Boys in my childhood. So that's the childhood part done. As I had mentioned before, when I finished elementary, got into junior high and high school, there was the years of darkness. There was no reading. I just stopped reading. If there's anybody who boys would understand who went through high school, adolescence, it seems I've been watching a lot of BookTube. It seems it's not very. It's quite common. I'm not the only one that sort of in their high school years were discouraged from not discouraged, but were not encouraged to read as much as perhaps we should have. And so a lot of guys that I've been watching on YouTube had the same issue where in their high school and even in their early adolescence, early adult years weren't very prolific readers. It's not to say all young men or boys or young men, but many of them, and I was one of them. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't assigned things to read at school, especially in English literature class. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am based in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates, but I went to an international school, a very American system. So we were. I was very fortunate to do my schooling in an English school, in the English language, and to be exposed to English literature and English class. Although, again, I didn't take it too seriously in those years, the lost high school years. But we were assigned reading, especially at English class, as well as history class and things like that, social studies, etc. But I remember we're doing it's September now. If you've seen some of my previous videos, the previous videos before this one, it's Shake-tember, where we're encouraged to read Shakespeare. I was encouraged to read, or I wasn't encouraged, I was forced to read Shakespeare in high school for high school English. I remember Romeo and Juliet. I remember Julius Caesar. I remember, I think it was either Hamlet or Macbeth. I don't remember exactly which one, but we did a bit of Shakespeare. And I remember my senior year we did this. This is Beowulf. Now this is the Seamus Heaney translation, very famous one. I think that one was at the Pulitzer or the Nobel. I don't recall which prize it won. Maybe it says, I can't see it here, but anyway, in 1995, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Okay, so it was the Nobel for his translation of Beowulf. I think he won it for his translation of Beowulf. So this wasn't the one we read in high school. We had a textbook which had the text, and we were compelled to read it. So but I purchased this much later, and it just being on my shelf, it reminded me of my high school days. When I wasn't much of a reader, I didn't appreciate reading, although I did really well. I did really well in English, I did well in history, and those are that's why I'm such an avid reader. Is just at the time I didn't know that I was an avid reader. So most of it is my fault. It was also I didn't really have a mentor, and because I grew up somewhere that wasn't in the English speaking or the Western world. Again, I wasn't encouraged to pursue English literature or history, which are some of my passions. So for that reason, I didn't pursue studying, or I didn't appreciate my school assignments, my English reading assignments for school. But again, I wanted to show the Beowulf one. It's interesting. I read this in my senior year, and I remember I graduated, and then I went to university the year after, and I went to university in Canada. And my freshman year, my first year, I actually took a course. I think it was Western civilization, but it was the first half, and this was the assigned reading. So I read this in senior year, and then it was assigned to me again in university, and I was like, again, this book. But it was in university when I started to appreciate reading more, although it wasn't this work that got me back into it. I found difficulty relating to this book because it's a very Anglo-Saxon story, and it has to do with it was the Anglo-Saxon world at the cusp between pagan sort of tribalism and then the coming of Christianity. So it's a very, very Western, very Anglo-Saxon, very Christian sort of subject matter, and it's hard for me to relate as a non-Western, non-Christian person. So I don't know why it was assigned to us in high school, and then in university I kind of struggled with this. So again, but again, I thought I would show it. So like I said, when I got into university is when I started to pick up the reading bug again. The gap from high school was overcome, and I got back into reading. One of the books that I have, I'll show next, just a bit of backstory. So getting into university, we're talking 2003 is when I started my university. I'm aging myself, but I said it at the beginning, I'm turning 40 in a month, so whatever. 2003 is when I entered university. And one of the first things I did, you're in university, you're an adult, you've got a bit of money, or I got my first credit card. I was intrigued by Amazon.com, because when I was younger, I just didn't have access. I couldn't go and purchase whatever I wanted on Amazon, but I was intrigued by Amazon, and especially Amazon, for those of you who remember, started as a bookshop. That was the first thing Jeff Bezos started. I don't think Jeff Bezos is a big reading fanatic or a reading person, but he started his business as an online bookstore. And I think he did it because, books, they've all got an ISBN, and you can categorize it very easily. I don't think he did it because of his love for literature. He just did it for his love of, I think, logistics, basically. But so again, 2003, Amazon had been around already maybe 5 or 6 years by then, but for me it was something new, and it was very novel, and I wanted to purchase a book. It was just the idea of purchasing a book, and it comes delivered to your house. Again, this is 2003. This was a very novel idea. Now it's pretty normal, but one of the books I got, again, I was getting back into reading, and this book was it was quite popular at the time. It had the word history in the subtitle, although it's more of a well, I'll show you the book. It's by Thomas L. Friedman. The World is Flat. Well-known book. The subtitle is A Brief History of the 21st Century. So this was published, I believe, in early 2000s. 2005. So Yeah, pretty much when I was getting back into reading in my university years, 2003, 2004, 2005. And I think this was the first book I ever purchased on Amazon. And the book, what it's about, is about globalization. Friedman is one of the first people to actually write and talk about globalization in his articles. I think he's a New York Times reporter, columnist, and then this book, again, globalization. You got to put yourself back in 2003. Still a relatively new concept. So, and I think in this book he discusses, because he discusses a lot about China and India and how the supply chain is based in India and China, and then it is shipped to America, and the final product is delivered in America, and then it's brought to your front door. And I think he discusses Amazon in here. And just I remember this book. It's a really nice. It's a nice cover. It's really well made. And I remember just it had the Amazon story in it. You order it, and it comes from I don't know which warehouse, and then you open it. You open the box, and then this book is there, and it was. I mean, now it's aged, but when I first opened it, it had that new book smell. It's just I don't know, has good memories for me. I don't know, this book is probably dated now. It'd be interesting to read to see if it's still relevant, what relevance it has. But again, talking early about the rise of China and India and how the supply chain and globalization, how it's all linked. So again, reminded me of early internet days. Um, but to go back to that period, 2003, maybe we can even go back to 2001. As a Middle Eastern person, I think a lot of my, not exclusively, but a lot of my subscribers and viewers are probably Americans. 2001, September 11th, 2001 specifically, was a very important date. So 2001, I was still in high school, so I think about 16, turning 16 or 17. So when September 11 happened, I remembered it, although I at the time didn't appreciate the scale or the significance of September 11th and what happened after September 11th. So, we woke up, or in America they woke up. In the Middle East, it was already evening time. So I was out with my friends. Like I was a 17-year-old, like bored high school, not senior. What was it before senior? What do they call it? Anyway, maybe 11th grade. But so we were watching this in the evening. We were like, "What's going on? Was this an accident? The plane just?" But then it became clear. Everybody knows the story of September 11th. So again, yes, it was Islamic terrorists who boarded those planes and flew them into the buildings in New York and Washington D.C. At the time, again, young, not very affected by it, although later, as the years go on, it would affect me even almost personally. I think, how many hijackers were there? I think it was 19 hijackers, if I'm not mistaken. 2 of them were from the United Arab Emirates. The majority of the others were from Saudi Arabia, but 2 were from the United Arab Emirates. And then, again, what happened after the war in Afghanistan? America declared war in Afghanistan because that's where Osama bin Laden was based, and his Al-Qaeda group were based in Afghanistan. Again, I didn't have much connection to Afghanistan, but as the war on terror, as the Bush administration called it, continued, then it became even more personal to me. But anyway, the book that reminded me of those September 11 days, although I didn't purchase this at the time, but this book came out, and also it won a Pulitzer Prize. This is The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright. Again, the glare, but the subtitle is Al-Qaeda and the Road to 9/11. So this is almost a history of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and his group leading up to the September 11th attacks. So again, I didn't read this, but I read this much later, but just being on my shelf, it reminded me of those days, September 11th, the end of my high school days, my entry into adulthood, a very fraught time, a very fraught time. And as I said, September 11th for me personally, Afghanistan personally didn't affect me. But what did affect me was in 2003 when the Bush administration, having pretty much subdued Afghanistan, moved their target to Iraq, and the invasion of Iraq and the regime change and the removal of the Saddam Hussein regime in Iraq and the war there, and then what led after the war, the insurgency, etc. That affected me because I'm actually half Iraqi. So I'm half from UAE and half from Iraq. So the Iraq war definitely affected me. Now the Iraq war, I think, was launched in April of 2003. My high school graduation was in June 2003. I went to Canada to start my university in about July or August 2003. So that war coincided with my university career. I like to tell people that the Iraq War was raging during my high school prom, and then by my university and my frosh weekend, the insurgency was at full swing. But anyway, so I have, it's actually 3 books, but I'll count this as one. Just an example of some of the books. I have so many books on the subject, but I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so just examples of books that reminded me of those days. One is includes the lead up to the war, the whole weapons of mass destruction, that whole controversy. This book is called Endgame, and it's by Scott Ritter. The subtitle is Solving the Iraq Problem Once and for All. Scott Ritter was the he was the chief weapons inspector for UNSCOM in August 1998. So he was in charge of verifying weapons of mass destruction for the United Nations. I think Scott Ritter now is quite popular on YouTube, on new media and social media, especially on YouTube. A bit pro-Russian, I don't know, questionable. He's also a bit of controversy. He had some legal issues, pedophilia allegations. But anyway, I don't want to, that's not what I'm just putting this book up as an example of the lead up, the weapons of mass destruction, WMD controversy that was the main selling point for the Bush administration. The Bush administration's main selling point is taking America to war in Iraq. Another book, these are, again, just in the same vein, there's this by Con Coughlin. It's Saddam, His Rise and Fall. So this is about Saddam Hussein. It's pretty much a biography, but this was written, I think, again, the date of publication here is, look at this paper right over there. Some Saddam Hussein propaganda. This book was published in 2002. And then it was published in 2002, so before the removal, but then it says there's another copyright date, 2004. It must have been updated after the fall of his regime, or after he was caught, or at least when his regime was taken out of power by American forces. So there's that book. And then there's a book that discusses the emergency. I have is it Steve Rick's Fiasco? But then there's the other one, which doesn't get as much publicity. It's Imperial Life in the Emerald City, and the subtitle is Inside Baghdad's Green Zone. The author is Rajiv Chandra Sikaran. So this discusses, after the fall of the Saddam Hussein regime, the insurgency, the America in the Green Zone, and just America, they won the war, they removed Saddam from power, but then they sort of lost the peace, the insurgency. They did have the surge, but a significant number of American soldiers were killed in Iraq in the war. So this book, again, those 3 books, it's 3. I couldn't pick one, but that gives you there was one book about the lead up to the war, a book about Saddam Hussein and the fall of his regime, and then a book about the insurgency. But overall, we consider it one book or one memory So I think that's one, two, three, four, five. If we include those three as one, so that's five. So now we're okay. Now my life story for all of you who are very interested. I apologize if this is really boring, but this is my life, or these are the memories of my life, big memories. Um, University is happening. We're talking about 2004, 2005, 2006, all the way up to 2007, 2008 is when I graduated from university. Now, again, I was in university in Canada, and at this time, 2003 to 2008, when I was in Canada for university, of course, there was the Iraq War raging, and there was a bloody insurgency, and it was a mess. But my other side, which is my UAE Emirati side, was actually going through uh, a very rapid growth phase in those years. A lot of it was linked to what was happening in Iraq. Because of the war in Iraq, oil prices, for those of you who are around or who remember, the oil prices from 2005, 6, 7 was shooting up. It reached $120 a barrel. 100. I forgot the peak where it reached, but it really went high, and that really helped oil producing countries like the United Arab Emirates and the other Gulf countries, because they were raking in the money. There was so much money coming in. And those years, while I was sitting in a frozen Canadian waste, I would be reading news about the Emirates and what they were doing. And there were some incredible projects. Some of them are around. You can still see them. One of them was it's the famous Palm Island. I don't know if people watching this are aware of it, but you can see it from space. It's an artificial island that was built in the shape of a palm. I should have got a picture. The book I wanted to show you doesn't have pictures, but so it's a palm-shaped island. Very unique design. Uh, if I remember, maybe I can put a link for a picture, or you can check it out. The other thing that was built at this period, that was announced and was built quite quickly, was the tallest tower in the world, and it's still the tallest tower in the world, and it's here in the Emirates, in the city of Dubai. So the book I wanted to show is this. It's by Jim Crane. It's called Dubai, the story of the world's fastest city. And there's the picture of the famous highway in Dubai. It's pretty much the main thoroughfare in Dubai. So this book reminded me of the end of my university and the beginning of my career. So just to give you a little bit of, again, more background, I apologize for boring you to death, but so all of these, the artificial Palm Island, the tallest tower in the world, the biggest mall in the world, these were all being announced, and I was sitting in the classrooms and in the library at my university in Canada, and being like, I should be there. There's money to be made. I should be there. I'm missing the action. So in a way, that kind of helped me, because it kept me focused at university. I wanted to finish university. I just wanted to get it done with, and I wanted to go back. I was thinking of going to Iraq, going with the US soldiers and acting as a translator. That was one option, but because of the insurgency and it wasn't safe, that idea quickly dissipated. But then, as Dubai was raking in the big oil money, I said, I need to be part of that. I need to get into the action. So I really put my head down, and as I grew older in my university, as I matured even more, I really focused and tried to get the university done, get that damn diploma, and get out of there and go back to Dubai to get some of the action, get in on some of the action. So I graduate in 2008, and again, ideally I would have gone into more of a liberal arts sort of major, and get into maybe academia or something like that, something in the creative field. But because of the huge growth that was going on, I said, no, maybe it's better if I get into business and try to make money. And so this is what happening. So I graduated in 2008, and then you can see it here. It's on the top. It says, with a new afterword on Dubai's financial crisis. For those of you who remember 2008, the oil prices went up so high, and then boom, the bubble burst. There was the subprime mortgage issue in America. It also affected Dubai, which was heavily reliant on real estate. Still is, but the crash, the crash that happened in 2008 happened just as I was arriving from university back to look for work to make money, and I sort of missed the party. Let's just put it that way, because I was in Canada. But that being said, I actually got a good job at a good company, very high salary. I actually did end up making money. Um, but again, just to this book, the memories of those times, early 2000 up to 2008, and then the financial crisis, really affected Dubai really hard. A lot of foreclosures, a lot of empty cars and parking lots, abandoned cars and parking lots, abandoned homes, a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of tears, a lot of many stories. And Jim Crane, I think he's also a New York Times. He was a New York Times. Uh, he was a journalist for the New York Times, I believe. Uh, or sorry, for the Associated Press, but he was based in Dubai. He was the Associated Press reporter based in Dubai, and so he just in that period, that glitzy 2000 to 2008 period, and he just discusses those days in this book. So that reminded me of those days. Um, uh, it reminded me of those days, so I thought I would show it here. So now the last two books. So we fast forward. I get into the corporate world. I get into business. I making good money, and if I making good money, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't content. It wasn't my calling. Business wasn't my calling. It was very clear that I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a literature guy. I'm a history guy, mostly nonfiction history. You can see my library, and I've got this parallel on the other side. I've got the same amount of books. So I was making money, but I wasn't happy, and so I decided to actually leave corporate and the business world, and to become a struggling artist, a starving artist, and that's what I am right now. But one of the books that actually compelled me or encouraged me to get into more of a, or just to leave the business corporate world, was this book. And I've shown this book before in my previous channels. This is John Steinbeck's The Pearl. And I read this book, and this book, uh, changing my life. I guess you could say it changed my life. It Why did this book change? Why did it have such a big impact on me? Because although John Steinbeck wrote this, and it's based in Mexico, and it's about pearl divers, a poor fisherman who fishes for pearls, and his family based in Mexico. When I read this book, and this is my beat up Penguin copy, it's really in a bad condition because I've read this so much, and there's so much markings, so many notes in this. Here where I am in the United Arab Emirates, before the oil and the glitz and all the money, the main trade, the main way people made their living was through pearl diving. I've actually made a video about this, about this book and pearl diving in the Emirates. I'll link it below for those of you who want to see it. I don't want to go back into it here because this video is already going too long. But what I did just want to remind people, this story, although based in Mexico, it almost matches just the atmosphere of the book, and the cadence and all the setting, everything about it is very similar to what the pearl diving world was like before oil in this part of the world. And in my last video, I showed this book. This is called Seafarers of the Emirates, and it's just it's a coffee table book by a photographer called Ronald Corday, who was around just before oil was discovered, and he had his camera and he just took pictures of life in this part of the world before the oil. And this one, he's got a bunch of books, but this one focuses on the seafaring and on the pearl diving. Again, I showed this in the last video. Again, I'll show it to you again. There's a chapter, which is chapter 3, which is called Pearl Diving. And then again, this famous picture of a pearl diver about to go down to search for pearls. There's another picture of a pearl diver with a nose clip. These divers, I don't think I was very clear in my initial video about this subject. Here's another photo. He's covered with this special cloth. The pearl diver is, and with the nose clip. I wasn't very clear. This isn't them going on the shore and looking for seashells or oysters on the shore for pearl diving. They would go far into the sea. And again, they had no technology, no gas mask, no oxygen masks, no flippers, no snorkels, no goggles. They only had the nose clip, and they had a rope, and they would go down free diving in open sea, down at the bottom of the sea, picking up oysters, saving their breath for up to 5 minutes. Some say the time it takes you to smoke a whole cigarette, they would be down searching for pearls. And then they would come up for air. Again, and then it's very risky business, because going down without pressurized oxygen and coming up is very dangerous. Issues of suffocation, what's the scientific term? When you can't breathe, exfoliation. And then also a lot of cases of blindness because of the sea. And then, of course, sea creatures, shark attacks, stingray attacks, and then jellyfish. Very dangerous work, and then very exploitative. These pearl divers would risk their lives, and then sell the pearls to middlemen for peanuts, really pennies. And then those pearls would be sold in Paris and London and New York. And this is the 1920s, the 30s, before the Depression. The Art Deco, the glitzy, where pearls were actually pearl necklaces, pearl earrings were very popular, very fashionable, and sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds in the world markets. Most of them were from this part of the world. But anyway, I don't want to get into too much. I'll link to my video. You can, if you're interested, you can watch and learn more about this interesting topic. But this book, Steinbeck's Pearl, it's a memory, because it took me back to when I said, you know what, I'm sick of corporate, I'm sick of the business world. If I had stayed now in the business world, I'd probably be a millionaire, but I'm not. Now I'm a struggling artist, a starving writer, a starving artist. But one of my ideas, and it's still an idea I need to really push it, is to adapt this book, which Steinbeck wrote as a screenplay. It's very much written to be a movie. It was made into a Mexican movie in the 1950s, but Steinbeck wasn't very impressed with the final result. One of my dreams, we can say, is to turn this into a movie based in this part of the world. So again, it's a memory of a time where where my passion for reading made me change course in life, if that makes sense. And then, okay, this is going too long, but for the final book number 8, when I left the corporate world and the business world, I got an opportunity to do a short stint of work in Washington, D.C. I don't want to say what exactly, I don't want to get into it too much, but basically I got to go to Washington, D.C. It wasn't 6 months, it was between, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months, but again, it was a memory. This was, I think, in 2011, this was the Obama administration. I had the opportunity to go, and I took that opportunity. I grabbed it with both hands, and I really enjoyed it. Washington, D.C. is a very interesting city. It's not the most let's say, lively city in terms of, I don't know, nightlife or that kind of thing. It attracts very ambitious people, people who are ambitious in a political, like who want to get into politics and power and all that kind of stuff. Um, so a lot of politicians, but also their staff, and then a lot of journalists, a lot of scholars and think tank sort of people, a lot of lobbyists, that kind of thing. But it's an interesting city because it is the capital of the United States. And for again, I think I'm preaching to mostly an American audience. Maybe or probably most of you have been to Washington D.C. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the White House and the Capitol and the Mall and the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam Memorial and all the buildings and the Jefferson Memorial and all that stuff. Arlington Cemetery, the Pentagon. It's an interesting place. So I was very fortunate to be there. And the book I wanted to show that reminded me of my time is actually a bit different. This is Washington, D.C., the Blue Guide. This is a travel guide. And I know travel guides aren't very popular on BookTube because they're not really books. But the Blue Guide is a bit different. I don't know how aware people are of the Blue Guides. But these Blue Guides, first of all, the size of it, it's not really... If you can see, there are photos, but it's mostly text. It's mostly text. That's number one. Number two, the Blue Guides don't just say, okay, well, you can go and see the White House and the museum or the Smithsonian Museum is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. It's not like that. It has that information, but then it goes much deeper. It's a very detailed travel guide for the very I don't know what the word is, the intellectual or the very refined traveler who really wants the details. I think it would probably be most maybe appealing to like architects, that kind of thing. But even travelers who want more information than the regular tourist. This is for the traveler, for the informed traveler. So just to give you an example, I mean, if you'll indulge me, if you go to so this is chapter 1, which is divided into walks. So chapter 1 is Capitol Hill, so around the Capitol, etc. You go the first entry is about Union Station in Washington D.C. So just read it. It says. So it tells you open 24 hours daily, retail shops, open Monday, all the information you'd get on a travel guide, but then it gets into detail. So if you allow me to read it, so for Union Station, as an example, just the first entry, it says Union Station, built 1908, and then it gives you information when it's built, who the architect is, Daniel H. Burnham, and then 1988 restoration, Harry Weiss and Associates, etc. Began operation in 1907, a time when railroads dominated America's political and economic horizons. Automobile travel, shipping, and the invention of the airplane contributed to the railroad's steady decline. Union Station gradually fell into disrepair. In the 1980s, a movement was begun to restore this splendid Beaux Arts building. After massive renovation, the building stands as a beautiful monument to the glory days of the railroad, and the structure is also a functioning modern station, complete with a shopping arcade and restaurants. So you can see it gets into the history of railroads in America. Union Station was the train station that would take the president to the Capitol. I think Union Station is where President Garfield was assassinated as well, if I'm not mistaken. It'll probably be mentioned here. Again, it goes on. There's a section on history, just the history of Union Station. Again, it's mostly prose. It's history. So it tells you one of the who built it. It says Union Station has been the site of many significant events in Washington and U.S. history. In 1909, President Taft became the first president to use the station's presidential suite, which became the greeting point for foreign dignitaries, including King George VI and Queen Elizabeth of England. On January 23, 1911, financier J.P. Morgan was a passenger on a train that broke a railroad speed record when it made the trip from New York to Union Station in 3 hours and 55 and a half minutes, more than an hour faster than the previous record. It just goes on and on. World War I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay, it doesn't mention Garfield, but I remember Garfield being killed at a train station. Was it in Washington, or was it Anyway, but you get the idea. These aren't. This isn't just a guidebook that tells you these are the sites, and no, it gets into the details. So again, it's a book that reminded me. It reminded me of my time in Washington D.C. I purchased this in Washington D.C. There's a famous bookstore. I don't want to get the name wrong, but it's called. I should have checked before. Maybe I have a bookmarker. No, this bookmark. I have a book, but it's not. I forget the name of the bookstore, but a famous one. That's where I bought it, and I would just walk around Washington D.C. and read about it. There's things about the Capitol, the White House, the old post office building, the National Museum of Women's Rights. I'm just going through the about Parks Dupont Circle, the British Embassy, State Department building, Georgetown. It's all there, and then very detailed with maps and a few pictures. But again, I'm not a promoting travel guides, but blue guides are different. They're different. They're the most detailed travel guides you'll ever find. And then again, with the history, with the background, with architectural detail. Again, there's details about the Capitol and the phrases on the Capitol and what the statues mean. There's a big statue, I think, of President Grant in front of the Capitol. Who built the structure, or who built the sculpture, and the history behind it, and what all the figurines signify. So very detailed. Guidebook. So again, reminding me of my time in Washington D.C. This really takes me up. I mean, this is probably the first 25 years of my life. I can probably go on, but this video has gone on too long. So I think I'll end it. That was 8 books. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Angelina, for tagging me in this. If you're interested in doing this and you have a booktube channel, please, I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, I'll wrap this up. Thank you so much, booktube. Salute.